And one last question, I kind of want to answer because one thing that Dre says that's kind of crazy. No matter how great the team is, he's always like winning a championship is super hard. So like playing versus the Warriors, I'm like, it couldn't be that tough because this is the toughest team I ever played versus.
Right.
So, can you give us insight to like what it's like to, climb the mountain and win a Super Bowl championship?
Especially in football, which is probably the hardest. You know, you got ain't no series. You got one chance.
Yeah, it's crazy actually because, I went to the Super Bowl my second and third year. And so, like, that first year we thought we could make it and we got close, but we lost. We still needed some, we needed to mature a little bit. That second year we went and we won it. And then now you're hearing, oh, y'all never get back. Y'all never get back. Y'all never get back. And then we get back and then everybody knows we don't hand the ball off. And, that's that.
How do you feel about that?
I knew you were going to do it.
Because I got to know. Our guest today is a fully decorated trendsetter, both on and off the field, and it's the first NFL guest on the Point Forward podcast.
He is a Super Bowl champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, and member of the NFL 2010's All-Decade Team. Welcome to the podcast and one of the greatest linebackers of all time, Mr. Bobby Wagner. All right, so Bobby, we're just going to jump in. How did you get here? Just everything you've accomplished. Take us back to the beginning and running it up to today. How did you come to this point?
Well, I started playing football in high school. I was a big basketball guy, a big basketball fan. That's all like my family really put in my face, and so I really wanted to play basketball. But as I got older, I wasn't getting as tall as I thought I was going to be. And, I had a coach come to me and I'm shooting the gym and, coach came to me and was just like, man, if you really want to make it, you need to come play football. Like they're not going to get you to the next level. They're not going to take you to college. And so my football coach actually pulled me away from basketball to start playing. And I started playing, fell in love with it. Because I got such a late start, I wasn't really highly recruited. So the only offer I had was at Utah State. And so I took that. I wasn't really going to take it, but my mom kind of forced me to take it and basically kind of told me I wasn't allowed home if I didn't take the scholarship. And so I took that and kind of just ran with it, played well in Utah State, I got sick right before the combine, so I couldn't go to the combine. But the Seahawks took a chance on me, and kind of the rest is history. I played there for 10 years, and LA for 1 year, and here we are.
Yeah. So you say you play basketball before you play football. Do you think hooping on the court kind of helped you transition so much easier to the football game?
Yeah, definitely. Because in basketball, especially for my position, it's a lot of shuffling. And so that's all I do is shuffle. And so really in the off season, I like to incorporate like boxing and basketball as like my main workouts because I feel like it's just nothing compares to like playing a basketball game. Because our game is like we run fast for like 7 seconds, 8 seconds, whatever. Then we have a break. Then we do it again, then have a break. But like basketball is just constant, just up and down the court. And I'm just playing it like LA Fitness or the recreation, but I went to a game one time with Jamal and just listening to him kind of break down the game.
He's really good at that.
It was just crazy. Like what y'all think about it is like how fast the game is compared to what we do is nuts. So, I like to play basketball just to get in shape.
I want to follow up on, kind of your background and where you're from. I know you're born in Inglewood, right? Mm-hmm. But you grew up in Ontario. They call that the Inland Empire.
The IE.
The IE.
Yeah,
and I like the IE. It's
underrated. The IE is
underrated, man. It's a lot more better than what it was when I was growing up, but it's still underrated.
Yeah, they got a whole arena there. We played a couple preseason games there against the Lakers. Actually, they got a big Laker community there. I know Collison is from there, and then I actually saw you in a photo playing against Kawhi in high school.
Yeah.
And so,
crazy.
Everyone talks about LA. I know you spoke about it as well in terms of, the outreach or the access that LA kids get versus the IE or lack thereof in the IE. And kind of just tell me what you enjoyed about growing up in the IE and what people don't know about it.
I just think it was different. I think like the crazy part is like when I was growing up, everything was still being built. And so it was a lot of farmland being bought up. And so like our school was next to the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like kids be tripping. And so like, I guess they would during like, we had little breaks and stuff, they would go over and they would tip the cows. And so I remember going to school one day and I remember the principal getting on the intercom and saying like, hey, like we talked to the owner of the thing. He said like if the next person that's caught trying to tip the cows over, they gonna get shot. And I was like, they said this over the intercom?
That's valuable property.
You know what I mean? They could have emailed or told us something. I'm like, man, that's kind of aggressive. And so, as kids, like they're gonna do it more if you're gonna talk like that. So like that's the kind of stuff I remember. I remember like everybody that came from like different areas, the first thing they pointed out was the smell. They smell like cows because there's so many cows. But as like you grew up, those farms got bought up and then places started getting built. And so you had like that arena get built. You had like all these different things get built. And so it was a cool little energy, cool little vibe. It was nice to get away from the city, nice to get away from like the LA life. That's what we was trying to escape. And so, I had a nice little upbringing.
Yeah, I read something where you're talking about growing up in the IE and you use examples of like the Clippers or the Lakers. You kind of felt the way because they always had camps and free things, in the LA area, in the LA County, but nowhere close to the IE. So talk about, what motivated you to kind of get on and, I know you do a lot of philanthropic work in that area.
Yeah, I felt some type of way because it was just like, growing up, like we wasn't as well off as people thought. Like we didn't have books, we didn't have like things that I feel like the inner city didn't have. And I always had like family, like a lot of my family still lived in Inglewood and places like that. And they will always talk about Lakers, Rams, or the Clippers hosting these events. And I just always felt some type of way because they never made their way to the IE. And so I had a couple of my friends that he was getting scouted and. He ended up going to Arizona State, and then like we had another guy go to UCLA, and we kind of like just had like a pact, like all right, when we make it big, like we're gonna make sure that we come back to this area because it's an area that a lot of people don't think about. Even like scouts, wouldn't come to the IE to look at players, and so they created this like this all-star game where it's like the city versus the IE or city versus.
Yeah, Dre, it's kind of similar. They did it in Chicago versus the suburbs.
Yeah, so we was like, all right, let's go down there and show them like we play ball down here too. And so, I think the more people like got exposed to, the more people like showed out, the more people started to come, and I think it's a different vibe now for sure.
But so let's just talk about kind of like who you are. Most folks know, for folks that don't know. You were named the 2010s, all football team, not just for your team, but the entire NFL, 8-time Pro Bowler, first team all defense, 5 times, second team.
Captain of the league.
Right. And it was, the Legion of Boom, the captain of that, I spent some times with a few of your former teammates, Richard Sherman going to Stanford and obviously, Marshawn almost killed me because I hit too many home runs in a softball game and he was a pitcher. And so he picked me up, put me over his shoulder. I was in my contract year.
That's crazy.
And cats were like, yo, put him down. But it was all
Marshawn,
up. And his mom is such a beautiful person, just what he does for Oakland. But, it's kind of like the Steelers had the steel curtain, or you got, the Detroit Pistons and their defense and just different eras of different sports where there was, they made a name for themselves that stood the test of time. And your team was able to do that. And so, just being a leader of all that, kind of talk to me about or tell us about where all that came from. Like, when did you know that you had something special? What did you do to kind of hone your leadership skills, your football skills? Who helped you throughout that process? Especially coming from a small school like Utah State. Did you always envision this for yourself?
I think I had an idea of like what I wanted to be. Obviously, like, there's certain things when you come into the league you don't know. Like, so watching, like growing up, I watched like All-Star games, I watched the Pro Bowl. And so I wanted to get that. And then when I got into the league, I learned about All Pro, and I was like, oh, what's that? That's the best of the best. Like, there's Pro Bowl, that's like fans. You know what I'm saying? That's like more of a popularity contest. But then like there's like All Pro, where it's like, regardless of your division, like you're that guy. And so, I think you start striving for that. And, I think like for us, it was just, I think it was just a perfect storm, to be honest, because we came in around the same time. We was all the same age. And so we just hung out. And so it was like college. Like when I got to the league, I think I was like 21. Sherm was like 22, 23. Cam was 22, 23. Like everybody was around that age. And so we just did what we did in college. Like after we got done practicing, we went out and ate. And so our bond just like was a lot different, because a lot of the league was still like older. It was like, you had some young guys, but you had some older guys. But our team was made up of like a lot of just younger guys. We had a couple older guys, but that was pretty much it. And so we just bonded together. And then that first year we lost to Atlanta, but like we felt like we really could have beat anybody. Like we lost to Atlanta, and then they lost to, I think, the 49ers. And we had beat the 49ers. So we was like, dang, like we could have easily been in the Super Bowl. And so we all just like made a pact that we was going, like wherever we went, we was going to work harder. And so we started working out together. Like everybody had events like over the city. Like Cam had an event in his hometown. Shern had an event in his hometown. So we made an effort to like go and be at each other's events. And we just started building this bond that just was unbreakable. So when we got on the field, it was just like free. Like we had plays that we would run and we would practice, but we would also like be out there and be like, we're gonna try this. But we had so much trust in each other that we just like, all right, we're gonna try this on the field. And we would make up stuff, but we was all connected. We moved as a string. And so it just made us just like unstoppable. And as far as like the leadership thing, like I was lucky to be around like guys like Cam, guys like Marshawn, guys like Sherm. But at the same time, you had to find your own way. And so I really just started to look at like people I looked up to. And so I liked how Obama spoke. I liked Ray Lewis. I like how Kendrick like delivered messages. I like how Nipsey delivered messages. So I just started studying those guys and study how they talk, and then try to like mold it in a way that fit me. And so that's kind of how like my leadership kind of came about. Cause like I'm not like Ray Lewis when it comes to like the whole, like get in front of your face, be all vocal. I can do that, but I pick my spots.
Right.
But like, I feel like the way I do it is like really having an intimate relationship with like pretty much everybody, like, and talking to them individually. And then, when I speak up, I make sure like it count. Like I don't just talk just to talk, but I talk and make it count. And so, I've been fortunate enough to learn from different people. I've been fortunate enough to come up in an era where, we got some great leaders, and a lot of it is just learning.
Well, I want to touch on that before, it slips my mind. You spoke on, a couple gentlemen that are, leaders of their generations in terms of the way they conduct themselves, their values, the way they speak. You spoke about Obama, you spoke about Kendrick Lamar, obviously these great voices of our generation. And you're known as a high IQ guy. And we really hear a lot about high IQ in football from really one position, which is the quarterback's position. So, tell us what makes a high IQ guy on the defensive side, especially being a linebacker. Evan and I respect it, times a trillion, because we understand, we weren't cut out for that. But being a linebacker, kind of walk us through what that embodies and what defines a great linebacker, not just with tackling or what people may see, but what goes beyond that.
I think as far as especially like the middle linebacker position, I feel like it's considered the quarterback of the defense. And
Mm-hmm.
so you got to literally know every single thing that's going on in front of you and going on behind you. And you got to be able to control that. And, I think for a long time, I think people just assumed that we wasn't smart or didn't have that capability. But I feel like with defenses nowadays, it's like offenses are so complex now that, the minute a guy moves, you almost can change the defense. And you need somebody in the middle of that defense to be able to articulate that to everybody. And so, there's so many things that you think about before a snap. I don't think people realize that from any
Mm-hmm.
position, whether you're a corner, whether you're a safety, whether you're a D lineman, like before the ball is snapped, you probably get like 20 to 30 tips before the play even snap. And that's one play. We probably got like 20. Like the basic ones that you think about is like if you watch a receiver, and this is that's like high school stuff, but like when you watch a receiver, most of the receivers in high school or most receivers, like still, some of them still do it to this day. Like when they get in the ball, they tighten their gloves. When they not getting the ball, they don't fix their gloves. So like if you look at a receiver and he not fixing his gloves or playing with his gloves, you like, oh, this is a run play because he's not, he's not worried about catching the ball. But then, he's over here tightening his thing. You're like, oh, like this is pass play. That's like the simple basic one. Like you can see the pressure in the lineman's hands, like whether he got to go backwards or forwards. Like there's so many different like tips that you could pick up on if you really study the game. And I think that's what's like made my game and allowed me to play so long. Like I said, I've been fortunate enough to be able to contact guys like Ray Lewis, London Fletcher, so many different people that I was able to play for a long, long time at a high level, and being able to learn from those guys and talking to them and seeing how all the things that they look at before a play, how they watch film. It's a crazy, crazy thing that I think nobody knows. Like the amount of work that goes into like our game is crazy because we practice crazy. Like practice is almost like worse than games, to be honest. Like we just want to get to the game, and the game is slower than practice because like our coaches try to make practice as hard as it can, so that when you get to the game, it's nothing.
Yep.
And so, yeah, man, I think that's what makes it a good linebacker. Obviously, you want to tackle. Nowadays, like back in the day, I feel like linebackers weigh like 260. That's not going to happen no more because like the running backs is just too fast and too too great now. So like, you're seeing more guys around like between 220, 240. You got to be able to cover guys downfield. You got to be able to take on guys like 320. You got a guy like Trent Williams coming to get you. You got to be able to get off of that block.
It's my guy.
So there's so many different things, so many different elements I feel like that come in part of this game that people don't know about.
Beautiful.
Well, I'm wondering, when you walked into Utah State, leaving the state of California, how much of a culture shock was it? And and how confident were you walking in? Because just a year and a half prior, you were, a basketball player, and then you switched to tight end, and then inevitably go play at a high Division I school. Or did you ever have the thoughts of the NFL in sight, or were you just like, let me make the most of it?
Nah, I mean, like, I think originally I just wanted to get to college. I wanted my college to be paid for, and I wanted to, keep this football thing going. And so it was funny because, like, when I went out there for my visit, like, it was snow. Like, it was snowing. And I had never seen snow before in my life. And so, in the cartoons, like, you walk on the snow. And so that's all I seen, just cartoons.
Yeah.
And so I tried to step on the snow and I fell right through the snow. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought you just walk on the snow. So I fell right through and I just looked like, I'm not going to school. Like, there's no way. And so we went sledding and everything was fun. So I just remember going into the thing, the coach at the time offered me a scholarship and he stepped up the room and I just told my mom I'd rather go to JC and take my chances. And she was just like, nah, like you gonna either take the scholarship or you're not gonna get on that plane back home and you're gonna figure out how to enjoy the snow. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna take it, but I'm gonna decommit when something better comes.
Yeah.
And, I end up, going. I think it ended up being the best thing for me because a lot of things that I didn't realize was Utah, because of their religion, a lot of the the student athletes, sometimes they go away for they I think they call it a mission. They go away for their mission.
Yeah. A lot of like 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah. So
the
like when I
BYU
got
players do it. Yeah.
for sure. And so when I started playing, I'm 18, like 17, 18 years old, and I'm playing against 21-year-olds because they freshmen at 21. Yeah. And so like some of the junior seniors are like 24, 25. And so I'm actually playing against older people. And so I feel like it kind of made me grow up a lot faster. I had to get a lot stronger because kind of almost playing against grown men already. Regardless of, how talented they were, like these are like grown men. Some of them had multiple kids at 20, and so, I think it definitely helped me. And, as I, play at Utah State, I'm looking around, I see, we had a safety and a punt returner get a shot. And I was like, all right, well, I just need a shot. Like, I don't really care if I get drafted. If I get a shot, I know I can prove myself. And as I kept playing throughout my years, I'm like, all right, like I can get drafted. I think I can get drafted. And, I had a good junior year and a good senior year. And then it was a wrap after that.
So is that where, obviously, I don't know, many people know that you're your own sports agent. Where did that derive from? Like, what gave you the confidence to do so? And in 2019, you negotiated the highest, contract for a linebacker ever. So what, is that where it derived from? Like the school, Utah State, those type of situations? Or did you always have a plan?
I don't think I always had that plan. I just think I'm always aware and I'm a conscious person. And so I'm always paying attention to stuff around me. And so when I got into the league, I think that was the year that it came out. If it didn't come out, it came out that football players, 80% of them, or like 79% of them, end up broken divorce 2 years out of the league. And so when I heard that, I was like, all right, that's interesting. And so I was like, let me sit back and just pay attention. So I'm in the locker room, and as I'm in the locker room, I'm really looking around. I'm seeing, I would say pretty much like 80% of players had the same agent. 80% of the players probably had the same financial advisor. And so I just started to do different. And I just started to try to be different. And so like when everybody else was like resting in the off season or like going to the club in the off season, granted, I did it my first year, but after that, I started going to, I started seeing if I could do like internships. So I did like internships with like Starbucks, Microsoft, start meeting people. And then I started to get away from the traditional like financial management. And so I went with somebody, and I kid you not, when I went with this guy, his name's Humble, he was the only person, to this day, he's the only person that I got calls from that was telling me I made the wrong decision. And I was like, that's weird. Like, he's a Black financial advisor, so there's obviously something there with that. But it was just weird that like I even had like my family hit me up like, yo, you're making a terrible decision. But at that time I had let go multiple agents, multiple financial advisors. I never got a call. And so for me, I was like, all right, I'm doing something right. And then, when I started exploring like business, I was like, man, I wanted to figure out like, how can I show the business world that I can handle business, but still like not stray too far away from like the main thing, which was, my profession. So, Sherm had did it the year before. Russell Okun had did it the year before, but they were both coming off of injuries. And so their deals were like highly criticized when they did it. And I was coming off like a fresh season, like fully healthy, all pro year. And I'm like, all right, let me take a crack at it. Let me show like when you come off a good season at a high level, you can negotiate your own deal. And so I did that with the hope that it would project me to like what I wanted to do, like life after football.
And that sounds it's similar to what Lamar Jackson is facing right now, especially with, you've seen a lot of the quarterbacks starting to get all guaranteed money. And then now you're starting to see that trickle down, more guaranteed money going into other positions. And so now I want to transition into business side of things. You're known for what you've been doing in the venture capital space, investing in startup companies. You spoke about your internships. Where did that start? And then also, we've spoken to Steve Ballmer, from Microsoft, owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, one of the most wealthy individuals in the world. How that relationship came about as well.
Yeah, so it started. Funny enough, it started. I walked in the locker room one day, and Sherm and Doug Baldwin had just got back from. They had just got back from this like Stanford seminar thing or something, where it was like a bunch of just alumni, and it was a bunch of people making all these different connections, and they were just talking about how great it was, and I was like, man, like Utah State has to have some type of connections. Like they got to have something. And so I remember there was a guy named Charlie Denson who he was the president of Nike at the time, and he went to Utah State. And so he was, I forgot where we were before, but he made us a Nike school. And so I was like, man, let me reach out to him. And so I tried to get his number, I was having a hard time. And at some point I got his number, I just cold called him. And, this is my first year, maybe my first or second year in the league, and I just cold called him, and he answered. And I just told him who I was. He knew who I was because of Utah State, and because I was in Seattle, he was living in Portland. And so I basically was just like, man, I'm new to Seattle. I would love to, pick your brain off of about business stuff or just come down. He's like, yeah, if you're ever in Portland, let me know. I was like, well, when are you in Portland? He's like, I'm here all the time. He's like, I'm actually here this weekend, if you're going to be here. And so I was like, yeah, I'll be there. And so I just drove to Portland. And I met up with him. We had a great conversation. And then he introduced me to this guy named John Connors, who was the former CFO at Microsoft.
Yeah.
And so I got to, establish that relationship with him. And then he started, always asking me what I wanted to do at the football. And I just thought it was crazy because I'm sitting here in year 1, year 2. I'm like, I just need to focus on football now. I'm not focused on my life yet.
Because that's what they tell us.
That's what they tell us. And so he was like, no, you need to have a plan. And so he would we would go to these lunches, and he was just always asking me. And so he started connecting me with people. And I got connected through Steve Ballmer, through him, I believe, and Amy Hood. And the funny story with Amy Hood is I didn't know exactly who she was. I went to this Microsoft event or Microsoft internship, and we're all in this kind of like this cafeteria area, and we just kind of it's maybe 20 players, and we just all talking. And so this lady comes, she sits down next to me, and I'm having this amazing conversation. We were talking to her I was talking to her for 20 minutes, and we just talking about all type of stuff. And she was just like, what are you guys waiting for? And I was like, we're waiting for the CFO to come down and start this thing up. She's like, oh. And so she just stands up and she's like, hey, everybody. So I had been talking to her for probably 20, 30 minutes and had no idea. And so, that's kind of how our relationship formed. And we just became great friends. She became a great mentor of mine. And between those two, I got introduced to Steve, and I was man, I just want a different perspective. I was going through my contract negotiations, and I was I got agent perspective, I got GM's perspectives. I'm I want to know, the person that make the decisions, what are y'all looking for? And what are y'all, what are some of the things that people do right, and what are some of the things that people do wrong? And, he was gracious enough to give me his time, and he became a mentor of mine as well. And so I just started making these mentors and start having these people who were generous to give me their time. And that's kind of how it all just came about.
Yeah, that's what's up. And man, it's crazy, this conversation, how it's been running. And ET and I, we're ET's fresh into retirement, and I'm on the doorstep. I'm turning that knob. I'm walking into it. I'm actually looking forward to it. But then I'm also reading about, how the Rams have started to help you, go into, that leadership role in being a GM or being, high in the C-suites, and then the possible ownership. I was just, I'm listening to this dope podcast called Acquired, and whenever they focus on sports leagues, I tap in. They had one on the PGA. I'm a big golfer. They had one on NBA a couple years ago, but they just dropped a 3.5 hour pod on the NFL.
You gotta send it.
Amazing. And so I'm definitely getting to you because we could talk all day because I've been doing a bunch of internships. ET and I, we started this whole podcast network. We're doing a bunch of things. And my last question, we're going to get there later, but I want to know why basketball players and football players, we need to do more stuff together. Because now the brain's just working, you know, and we've always had that weird energy and I don't know where that came from. I hate it.
Where it came from? What's your perspective?
What's my perspective? I'll say it like this. I feel like the game is two different games. We act how we play, and this would be outside looking in. I feel like a football player is more physical, more aggressive mentality. You know what I'm saying? And you switch to basketball, we're more, not as aggressive. You can call us soft to a certain extent, but our approach and everything is smooth and sometimes more delicate. And then when you throw women in the mix,
the root of all problems on earth.
It starts in college, and then after that, it's like, hey, bro, you know what? I'm just about done messing with y'all. Dude, too big, and like he got an attitude problem. And I'm being sick of him thinking I'm soft.
Like, that's exactly where I think it stems from, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
college for sure.
Like it stems from like either college or high school. It don't matter. Like less high school because like you play both, or you could do both, or you can,
right.
But it's like I feel like it's a competition on who's gonna get the girls, and it's like do I want the football player? Do I want the basketball player? And then it's like, all right, now it creates this like beef between one another because like we got in competition on trying to figure out how we got to do this, how we got to do that, and then you know what I mean. And y'all more noticeable than we are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the helmet getting your way.
You know what I mean? And so now that's I feel like the league competition. Like guys are like especially NFL players, whether it's like basketball players and rappers, is like we feel like we the least seen. So like you got guys go to the club and you got that table popping bottles, they know who that person is. That rapper popping bottles, they know who that person is. Then you got this guy popping bottles and you don't know who he is. He got money, but you don't know who he is because you can't tell by his face. You got to put his name up. So you got to do little sparklers with his name. Like, oh, I do recognize that name. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that. Like, but we got to squash that. We got to let that.
Oh man, I hate it. Like I really hate it because guys like yourself, guys like me. There's so many guys that need to cross paths, even on both ends. Even like you got some football players who are in the music. You got a lot of basketball players who are in the music. Exactly. Like we got to put our money together. Like that's real group economics. And so when I speak on that, I'm talking about the business side of things. I know you possibly there's 70% of the NFL is African-American, but we only got 2 head African-American coaches at the time, and we have 0 ownership in NFL at the time. In basketball, the numbers are very similar. We got half and half on the coach's side, but we only have 1 owner, and that's African-American in basketball. And so just kind of talk to me on your thoughts of, just the system of not just professional sports, but more specific in football, like one with guaranteed contracts and your thoughts on that, especially with some injuries we've had of late. And just, how do we get more involved on the ownership side?
Yeah, I think so. I think the NBA is way further along, in my opinion, than basketball is. I mean, than football is from the ownership perspective. I think the openness to it being possible is just more. NFL is still kind of behind in that. But, they're starting to make their strides. You got, a couple more GMs being black and people of color, or even women at that point, for that instance. I think the Raiders have one now, Broncos. The Titans just hired one. So they're making strides from that perspective. But I think the thing too is like, we just got to be more exposed to the opportunity. I just feel like we just got to be more conscious of it. We got to be more aware of it, more opportunities. Like we got to have people have more opportunities to want to put them in that role, because I feel like they have the ability to do that. They're just not getting the opportunity. And so we've seen the opportunities happen. Now that like the people are getting these opportunities, we got to make sure that we do something with those opportunities. Got to make sure we turn them into something. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of like the same thing with the contracts. I feel like nothing stops players from getting the contract, but I think like the system is just like there's this system where you got to break it. Like you got to break that system. Like we seen like Kirk Cousins get a contract. We see like Watson get a guaranteed contract. Tannehill, like we've seen people get contracts. You just have to
Bradford.
Like, you gotta want it. You gotta want, but like you have to sacrifice too. Like Lamar Jackson situation. Like if they franchise tag him twice, he's gonna be in the same situation as Kirk Cousins, and so he might be in a position to want to take that chance. Most people don't want to take that chance. Most people not saving enough. Most people not prepared to do that or have the guts to do that. And so if he does that while negotiating the deal for himself, the door that he opening up for the people that's following him is going to be crazy. But, we need more people like that because, like, I don't understand the criticism or, like, even the thought process to why, like, the Ravens wouldn't pay Lamar Jackson. Like, you're not going to find another one. And my man got an MVP. Like, who has that credibility going into their contract? He did everything he needed to do. Like, if he was a different quarterback, like, he been paid. But he's a different quarterback. He's not your traditional suit and tie type of guy. He is himself. Yeah. And I don't know if that's the reason why it's the holdup or not, but I think from what I heard or like things like that, what I think he should do it, I think he should get a guaranteed contract, like fully guaranteed contract. Like, why not? And so, I think he's got to fight for it.
Yeah. What do you think that's obviously the guy looks like me, or you do an example of a Lamar Jackson compared to how he's kind of similar to the kind of hate or criticism sometimes Cam Newton got. But then you get like the underdogs who are so often beloved, like Russell Wilson. You know what I mean? Do you think sometimes there's a door that's open for others if you play the game a certain type of way?
I don't know if it's play a game a certain type of way. Honestly, I think it's control. It's like I don't think you look at Lamar Jackson and you can't control him. He gonna beat him. You look at a guy like Cam Newton, like you can't control him. Even like I remember it was before our game, I believe. Like he was doing all the crazy dressing and all these different things. And so, the coach tried to say, all right, everybody got to wear a suit. And he came out and wore a suit, but he had the hat on and had and so I think they benched him for like the first half or something, or didn't let him start the game, like benched him for the first series. And so sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just like, you can't control that guy. And, sometimes people like people that can be controlled. Even like Marshawn, for a long time, Marshawn got a lot of criticism. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think people realize how smart Marshawn was. Like, like people don't see the stuff that we saw. Like we see the outside stuff, but like, there'll be times I come into the locker room, my man reading a book, like a thick book, like Harry Potter size book, but on finances and 401ks and things like that. And like bringing everybody in, like, hey, come sit down, man. You know about your 401k? Did you maximize your 401k? Okay, this is why you should do that. And so that's why I said, like, I was lucky to be in the building with guys like that. Like, so it really opened my door. Like if I look at the group that we was in, it's like everybody's doing crazy work philanthropically. Yeah. I think Michael Bennett wrote a best-selling book.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sherm did his own contract. Like I had my own contract. Marshawn is like building all type of stuff in Oakland. You know what I'm saying? And getting back to the community and so many different things. And so, I got exposed to so many different things. And so I think that played a part in it too. Like I was exposed to a lot of guys that just thought different. A lot of guys that didn't accept the norm and was willing to challenge the status quo. Right. And if you wasn't willing to challenge the status quo, you kind of stuck out. Yeah. And so you either got with it or, you wasn't there.
And that's why To Pimp a Butterfly might be a top 2, maybe number 1 favorite of all time. And, I say this a lot, and I know I get the, E.T., he remembers when Elton Brand would call me Malcolm, when I would go into that mode when I was in Philly. And I always tell folks who work in the sports space, it's like I said, 70 60, 70% of us in all the major sports, the two major sports. Football is the most popular sport in America, but then basketball is right behind it, and it's all African Americans. And we work with people, such as the trainers or, physicians or strength guys or even your mental health experts. It was like, if you don't understand our culture, it's much harder for you to relate to us. So go listen to our music, go watch our movies. And I always tell them, like, I made one trainer, I just made her go watch Coming to America. She never seen Coming to America. You know what I mean? And that's the easy one. But to Pimp a Butterfly, go listen to our music and go understand it. But, like the situation we got down in Florida, they trying to erase our history from us. And so it's just a constant fight that we're having. And then that even translates into kind of, you working with Next Play Ventures, correct? Mm-hmm. And that's a VC firm. So you invest in startup companies, and is that an avenue you want to take, or you took it? Obviously, just kind of tell us where you want to go with that.
Yeah, so I think the goal is to my goal is to have my own VC and my own fund. And I think the biggest thing that again, you try to break down all the excuses that they try to use to not allow you into space.
Yep.
And so, one of the excuses is like, oh man, you've been an athlete all your life, so you don't know nothing about investing. So I've been doing that. And so whenever I retire, that's not something they can say. Yeah. And the thing that I loved about Next Play, because I've been involved with Next Play for a long time. They actually were the first ones like taking on like one of those tours where you go around and you see different companies and things of that nature. They told me what a VC firm was. I had no idea what that was.
Right.
And, my main connection there is Ryan Neese. And I thought it was dope because he was like a guy that I looked to, because he played in the league, had a dad in the league, played in the league, and then he transitioned to the VC firm, the VC world. But not only was he with them, he like partnered with like the Sequoias, with the Andreessens, with all the big time people. And I was like, man, like this is dope that he's doing this. And I'm like, I want to be like that. And so that's kind of what started it. I started doing that. So I started doing a little bit of investing. Like my first ever investment was actually like a funny one. I was at this event that the Seahawks put together, and we had like this panel of just different. We had a guy that was from a VC firm. We had a couple of guys that like sold a company, and we had like I think a former football player that had some wine that he was selling. And I go off into the back, and I'm like getting chips or something, like getting some food or some drink or whatever. And then this guy in the back, his name is Bob, and he just started talking to me. He's just like, "Man, why are you guys here?" Like, "Man, we trying to learn." Like, "What do you mean?" Like he came off real aggressive, and so. You know what I mean? Like, why are you guys here? I'm like, man, I'm trying to learn. Like, what you mean? He started showing me like the black cards, showed me like, man, y'all not going. And I'm just like, man, who is this guy? Like, and he's like, man, y'all not gonna learn like this. What do you mean? Like he's like, oh, there's so many different books you can read. There's so many different people you can listen to. Like, that's not enough. Like, y'all have to do it. You gotta go out and do it. You gotta succeed and you gotta fail. You gotta learn from your failures, and you gotta figure out what you do right. From your successes, and you just got to keep doing that. And when you hone that in, you figure out what you like, you figure out what you don't like, you figure out, like, it's like football, like you figure out, the tendencies, what's good, what's bad, and you move towards them. And I'm like, dang, like this dude is like super smart. Like I just randomly went to the back of the thing at this time, and so he was like, I got a proposition for you. And so he basically like, I got this investment. I'll let you put some money into this investment, and it's a win-win for you. He's like, and you'll learn and you'll ever. So he was like, you put some money in. He's like, if you win, you keep what you want. He's like, if you lose, I'll give it back to you, but you have to give it to charity. And I was just like, all right, that's a great deal to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I did it, and the company ended up doing really well. And, I was forever grateful for him even to, one, have the conversations to me, and two, to let me into that deal. And then it was just like a cycle from that, like being able to like be a part of the different deals. Cause a lot of getting into certain deals is just your relationships. And so I started trying to build relationships with people, and just be in those rooms that athletes typically don't care to be in.
Right.
So When we say guns and butter, most people think of the macroeconomic principle, but it's actually a scene from the movie Baby Boy. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the
movie, yep.
Guns and butter, motherfucker. So he's discussing like the micro decisions that you make that turn out in the end to pay, huge dividends. And you told us your whole story. What do you think was, one micro decision that really made Bobby Wagner who he is today?
Wow. I would say two moments. One would be the moment, the decision to go to Utah State. Like me going with what my, like trusting what my mom was telling me and going there. Because I feel like like a lot of the stuff that I got started came from that relationship that I found at Utah State. And so if I hadn't done that, then I don't know if I would have made that call to him and he would have accepted the call.
Yep.
I would say that's one.
Yep.
And I would say the other one would be probably like my second and third year where I made a decision to stop like going to the club like everybody else and stop getting out. Like, everybody, like, because I was in LA. So, LA is a club every day but Wednesday.
Day party, everything.
You know what I mean? And so I was doing all that. And I was like, what? Like, I'm not spending my time right. Like, football is a little bit different. I think like the reason why I love football so much is like we play from August to February if you're lucky. And then you have from February to pretty much June-ish to do other things. Now, working out, even if you Aaron Donald, you only working out 3-4 hours a day. And there's so much more time to spend. And so I made a decision to start like seeing how many companies can I visit in that 6 months period before we had to start back up. And I think that that kind of pushed a lot of the stuff forward as well.
And one last question I kind of want to answer because one thing that Dre says that's kind of crazy, no matter how great the team is, he's always like winning a championship is super hard. So like playing versus the Warriors, I'm like, it couldn't be that tough because this is the toughest team I ever played versus.
Right.
So, can you give us insight to like what it's like to, climb the mountain and win a Super Bowl championship?
Especially in football, which is probably the hardest. You got ain't no series, you got one chance.
Yeah. It's crazy actually because, I went to the Super Bowl my second and third year. And so like that first year we thought we could make it and we got close, but we lost. We still needed we needed to mature a little bit. That second year we went and we won it. And then now you're hearing, oh, y'all never get back. Y'all never get back. Y'all never get back. And then we get back and then everybody knows we don't hand the ball off. And, that's that.
How do you feel about that?
I knew you were going to do it.
Because I got to know.
I think you pissed off. Like, you pissed off. Like, you mad. But at the same time, like, I'll give you my real honest answer. Like, my real honest answer was, like, it just happened. Because if y'all look back, and it's crazy enough, y'all look back, because, like, so we all mad. And I remember the next day, we got to do the exit meeting, right? And so Pete kind of give us, like, his reasoning for that play call. And, guys kind of, like, walk out. Like, everybody's just pissed off. Like, there's no way, because we still, like, we lost, like, yesterday.
Right.
So we're still mad. Like it took a long time for everybody to get over that. I still feel like there's some people that's not over that.
Yeah, bro. I lost like 20,000 betting on that.
It always comes to that. It always comes back to that.
We so pissed off, we so mad. But like I always have like this crazy perspective. Like he's not, when he explained the story, he's not wrong. And so we go back and y'all can look it up. So I believe it's the Arizona game. We in Arizona. Marshawn does this crazy run, gets all the way down to like the 2-yard line or something like that. And the next play, everybody knows, like, Marshawn got us down there, let him get the first opportunity to get us into the thing. So we passed the ball, but this time we scored a touchdown on this one. But if you look at the huddle, because I believe it was on TV, if you look at the huddle and you watch the huddle, you watch Russ tell the play, and you watch the play disperse, you could see Marshawn look at the sideline pissed off, and he flips the sideline off like during the play. And the only reason why everybody picked it up was because I think it was a national game, or like it was a game where like it was being televised. So you had the score right above. So if you look at the score, Marshawn's right above the scoreboard, and you just see his body turn towards the sideline and like flip the sideline off. And you like, damn, like that scenario happened during the season, but like, you know, we scored a touchdown on the play.
Yeah.
And so we tried it again, and it didn't work out that way this time. And so, you know, he was mad then, mad at that point. I mean, everybody was pretty much mad. I think if you look at Sherm's face on what happened, he's pretty much all of us. And
or with the nose.
yeah. You know what I mean? It took us so long to get over that, bro. Like it took.
It's a legacy thing, bro. Like
because like we really could have had two. We should have had two Super Bowls. Now you're thinking about, could we have gotten to that third one? You know what I mean? Like, because you probably had more guys wanting to come back because you want 3P. Now, you know what I'm saying? You never know what will happen. But, you know, you think about it. Every time somebody, you know, especially from Seattle, and every time somebody asks you about a Super Bowl, they be like, do you think they should have gave it to Marshawn? Yes. Like, yes. It's been a decade. Yes. The answer hasn't changed yet.
And my man White Jerry was in there too. Jerry, the acupuncturist trainer.
Oh yeah,
he worked for y'all.
Yeah,
so he came and worked for us like he worked for us like 2018-ish, 19-ish. Sure. So we used to have those conversations all the time. And
nah, for sure.
Yeah, that's my guy.
I remember him. He was great, man. He was
good dude.
He said he went and worked with y'all because we was you know what I'm saying, we wasn't winning championships, I guess.
Don't watch a game with him. He's crazy.
I bet.
When coach is giving this explanation with somebody like, bro, I'm not trying to hear that shit. Like, did people go, like, was it crazy or was just folks like, I
don't think it was. I think it was more body language like that. Like, I'm not trying to hear that. You know, a couple guys walked out. Like, we just wasn't trying to hear it. But I just think it was just crazy. And I think a lot of people think like that's what broke us up. But it was just so much stuff that led up to that moment. But that was like the end. Like, we literally right here about to beat Tom Brady and this unstoppable Patriots organization.
Right.
And we let it slide.
Well, Mr. Wagner, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it, sharing insights. More than just football. Everything you're doing, I definitely want to connect with you. You know, I started my own VC firm. I've been investing for a while. I think there's a lot of synergies there. So just
do more together, man.
Yeah, just really excited for what lies ahead. And you still doing it on the field. Just had another great year for yourself. You know. The team didn't do as well as you like, but I know y'all are up to some great things, and you'll keep being spectacular on and off the field. So once again, man, I really appreciate the time. Just great energy.
Thank you, guys.